And Ron, you made this point. If the Republicans were in power now, do you think that they would have a committee of 6? By the way, the 6, Max Baucus is very, very clever. He was able to get 6 people on this committee who represent 2.7% of the American people, and they have the control about health care. Now, why are we giving them that so much power? They would not give us the time of day, and we saw that for 8 years. How often do you think George Bush invited Democrats down to the White House to say, what do you think about health care? Never. So I want to say we've got the power, use it. Or, you know what? Use it or lose it. Yeah. I mean, that's as simple as that.
There was, and if you've got an issue like health care, which is
and by the way, David, all of us have been in the room with people that have tried to heckle Al Franken, and don't try it.
Because he'll go for you, won't he?
Yeah. Don't go to Senator Al Franken's town hall.
Hey, by the way, can we just say, Senator Al Franken, all right! Yeah.
But the Republicans have it awfully easy, don't they? I mean, here we are wrestling about health care, and all right, so we gave up the real thing that we should have, universal single payer, and now we got the public option, and we got to figure out how to make the public option. We got to figure out how to make that work, and it's all kind of complicated, and it's all sort of nuanced and all that sort of stuff. The Republicans, on the other hand, what are they saying? Barack Obama's going to break into your granny's room in the middle of the night and put a pillow over her head and kill her. My God! You know, that's easy. You know, people are terrified now. We've got to explain a complicated health care bill to them, and they're doing a pillow over her head. That's, you know, it's easier to whip up people's emotion than to actually get them to engage intellectually with an issue, and that's the advantage the Republicans have.
Listen to this question from Scott in Seattle, which, given what we talked about, seems almost out of place. He says, do you think we're witnessing the end of the Republican Party? And remember, this was a discussion very briefly after the election. Wither the Republican Party. They've been knocked down in Congress, legislative seats, everything. You know, what are they going to do if they lost their soul? That talk has disappeared, though.
Oh, I think we are. I think we are. The last Republicans were her father and Barry Goldwater and some of those people. But the Republican Party is dead. And what's rising from this putrefying mass that used to be the Republican Party is some religious, right-wing, neo-fascist organization. And that's the one that we have to be afraid of. You know, and seriously, you know, we were talking before we came out here, you know, the Nazi comparison is so shop-worn, and it's easy to reach back to the 20s and 30s and find comparisons. But Jesus God, you look at the people invading these meetings, and if that doesn't remind you of the brown shirts, then I don't know what does. At the 92 Republican convention, when Pat Buchanan gave his speech that started this, the culture war speech, and Molly Ivins said, "I bet that sounded better in the original German," you know. And that's where we are. So the Republican Party, I think the Republican Party is dead.
Yeah.
The party of her father is gone.
Yeah. No, I think we can take, you know, solace in the fact they appear to be led by Caribou Barbie and this oily taint woman, Orly Tate. The woman, you know,
yes, the birth
Natasha from Boris and Natasha, who was questioning the president's Americanism. I'm Boris, I don't know, he does not seem to be American. But you're right, this is not just the fringe. You have Congress people putting forth resolutions about whether the president's American. You have 60% of the Republican Party that doesn't know or isn't sure if he's American. I mean, that's the Republican Party?
Tom, let me go back to you for a second.
No, it is fun to watch them. It is fun to watch them disintegrate.
Yeah.
I mean, and I loved what I loved was George Voinovich from Ohio said, the problem is the Republican Party now has just shrunk to being nothing but a party of Southern white men.
Yeah.
And then Haley Barbour, of all people, right, the new head of the Republican Governors Association, governor of Mississippi, stood up and said, "I don't know why he says there are too many."
And then
he
you
said,
got
I got all the guns I want, but I don't. No, I got all the guns I need, but not all the guns I want.
And then you got Baggy Woman. I got my first name in the bag you, when I cry over America, I got to have it in a baggie.
Do you realize that Glenn Beck has a concealed carry permit?
Oh.
I swear to God. Well, you're okay. That's a little scary too. Well, you know.
That's
But Glenn
scary.
Beck announced on the air the other day he's got a concealed carry permit. He was bragging about, and I took my gun to the movie the other day, and I didn't kill anybody. Well, we'll give that man a little blue ribbon. I mean, but what the hell is Glenn Beck doing carting a gun around? I mean, that is a scary notion.
Bill mentioned the question, the Republican Party is essentially, and you mentioned religion, and who did?
Mike did.
Sorry. Okay, well, are you guys different? I'm sorry.
Well, we are one.
Sorry, but so,
Yeah,
Tom,
he's got more hair than I do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tom,
right,
there's a
David.
lot of questions about corporate
I
power.
comb it better, too.
And
I comb it better, I bet.
He's boys are so catty.
Oh, you're such a bitch.
they told me Tom is the one who knows all the facts. So we're trying to go back to Tom for a second here. We can just get off
That's
hair.
a good move, David. That's a good thing to do.
Just want to
yeah.
get off hair for a second. Tom, I got several questions about corporate power, not just within the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party as well. And the way to generalize them is that the biggest fear that people should have today is the rise of corporate power in America? People are saying yes. I hear
Yeah,
that.
it's been that case since the robber baron era, since after the Civil War, and there's going to be a Supreme Court case. There was a Supreme Court case, Citizens United. Citizens United was this group that did this Hillary Clinton 60-minute movie that was actually a trash Hillary Clinton piece that they were going to run during the primaries, and the Federal Election Commission stepped in as a consequence of a lawsuit and stopped them from running it. Actually didn't stop them from running it, just said if you're going to run this is going to have to be considered a campaign contribution, and therefore there's a whole bunch of expenses associated with it that Citizens United couldn't handle. And so they pulled the thing and they sued, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court heard the arguments this spring. And the arguments were around whether or not this was a violation of McCain-Feingold. And John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who made his living, his $2 million a year living, as a supporter and promoter of the idea of corporate personhood, corporations as persons, and corporate power, has now asked Ted Olson, the former Solicitor General in the Reagan administration, one of the most toxic men in America, has asked Ted Olson, who's arguing this case on behalf of Citizens United, he said, instead of rendering a decision, and this is very rare for the Supreme Court to do this, instead of rendering a decision, even after we've heard the arguments, I'm going to ask you to re-argue this case in the fall. And instead of just arguing it in the context of McCain-Feingold, let's widen that all the way out to First National Bank versus Bellotti in the 80s, and Buckley versus Vallejo in the 70s, and maybe even all the way back to the 1860s, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. In other words, let's take a chance. Let's see if we can do this with this 5-vote majority of corporatist shills. Thank you. I was looking for a word that wasn't sexist. That are on the Supreme Court. Let's look for a way to completely blow up all restrictions on bribery of senators and congressmen and women. And that case will be argued in the fall. And frankly, I mean, we're talking about a whole bunch of things here that are real important and real inflammatory, but I think that that's 100 times bigger than anything that's being discussed, and nobody's talking about it. And that's going to be argued in September. The decision's going to come down in October or November. And if that decision comes down the way I'm predicting it will, is a 5-4 decision saying that there are no restrictions on corporate, quote, free speech to give money to politicians, then we're going to have gone full over the edge into Mussolini's world of the total merger of corporations and government. And one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to become like Mussolini in his country, or the American people, or at least Congress, is going to be so horrified by this that there's going to be an enormous pushback, and there will be a change. And this is a really dramatic and pivotal moment that's coming, and we all need to be very aware of this and pay close attention to this. I wrote a piece for Common Dreams on this about 2 months ago called